Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show is always free, but if you want to support us on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/. I Love That Movie. And right now we're covering Loki. So we're wrapping up on Loki. We've talked about WandaVision. We've talked about The Mandalorian. A lot of Disney Plus on there. And then also weekly roundup. So I do have guests on my Patreon as well. We cover everything else. It's like not movies. So for as little as $1 a month, you can join there. And I want to take a moment to thank my top patrons. And they are Chris Balga, Jeff Widman, Philip Barker, and Michael Cross. Thank you guys so much for keeping the lights on. And if you like what you hear today, please subscribe and rate the show. It does help new listeners find us. And I've got a new guest on here today. I've got Bryant. Say hi, Bryant.
Hello. How's everybody doing? I don't know. Can you hear me? Wait.
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Make sure.
Sounding
Okay.
good. Oh, no problem. So Bryant, it is your first time on this show. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yes, my name is Bryant Collins. I am a cosplayer. I also do photography. I make vlogs. I do music. So basically, not create music, but I like to sing a lot. And I love playing D&D. So I'm a huge nerd, and so much more there is to know about me.
You're in good company then. And
Yes.
and we kind of met. I think we met at cons before, right?
Oh yeah, most
We
definitely.
run each
Yes.
other at cons, and then we've
Oh yeah,
also
all the time.
volunteered together
Oh
as
yes.
well. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But this is your first time on, and my guess, in case people, if this is your first time listening, my guests always pick the movie. So Bryant, what movie did you choose to talk about today?
I chose one of the coolest and greatest movies ever, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes. So this came out in 2018.
Yes.
And I remember kind of following. I won't ask you if you saw it in theaters because I'm sure you did. It's so recent.
Yes.
Some of
Yes.
the older
Right.
movies, I'm
Yes.
like, did you see this in theaters? Um, but I remember reading about when it was coming out, looking
Hmm.
forward to it, and then I don't know about you. Well, you already said you love it.
Oh yes.
I I was shocked by how much I loved it. Like I
Oh,
expected to like it, but it just delivered so much more than I thought it could.
right.
What are your thoughts on that?
There were so many things that happened in this movie that when I watched it the first time, I was going, "Wow!" I did not expect for that to happen. I legit thought it was going to be like, kind of somewhat a little bit bleak, but at the same time, not too nitty gritty. But this movie, it
Hmm.
actually hits you in like the feels and everything. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I had tears in my eyes. Actually, just now watching it. So like every time I see it. But yeah, I was aware of the character Miles Morales before this came out. I had
Hmm.
seen, people cosplay him. Same with
Yes.
Spider-Gwen and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Do you read the comics, or were you just kind of aware of Spider-Man, or this
So
version
I
of Spider-Man?
so I'm a big fan of Spider-Man. Like growing up, I just always loved watching Spider-Man. And when I hear about different versions of Spider-Man, I was going, I thought there was just one. But then you go,
Yeah.
oh, there's more and more. Like you got Miles Morales, you got like Ben Riley. There's even a version when Doc Ock took over as Spider-Man. You just go,
Huh.
what? You never knew all these kind of things. But then all of a sudden, hearing about this, you go, okay, I get more and more about this character. So for me, knowing about Miles Morales, every now and then I would read a comic about him, but then I would do more and more research, say like on the internet, social media, that kind of thing, so that way I get to know more about him and his backstory.
Yeah, yeah. I had like a vague awareness. I have to say honestly, like I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. This is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie. You know,
Yes.
I really loved it. Growing up, I watched Spider-Man. I saw all the like Tobey Maguire films when they came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like by the time the Andrew Garfield ones came out, I was having a little bit of Spider-Man fatigue. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed the Tom Holland version, and then this just like I mean, it made me more of a Spider-Man fan. I mean, I've always been
Yes.
aware of the character, and he's
Mm-hmm.
always super popular with children of any age. But I was definitely aware of him. I didn't watch the cartoon as much when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, in my teen and older years, watched the movies and enjoyed them. But I
Mm-hmm.
kind of thought that that was all there was to say. Like
I
when
feel
the
you.
Andrew Garfield ones came out, I was kind of like, and then Tom Holland, I felt like was sort of a fresh take. And then
Yeah.
this is, I mean, the freshest it could possibly be. So really enjoyed it.
Well, yeah.
um,
Well, yeah. It was just like you figure when Tobey Maguire came out, he was like, "Oh, bet this is the start of everything going on for Marvel and everything." However, I will say everybody knows if you're a true Marvel fan, you actually know that it was all about Blade that helped out with this whole Marvel
yes,
franchise,
good point.
and then
Another movie we haven't covered yet, surprisingly.
see, it's
Love Blade.
crazy, right? And then when we had Andrew Garfield, he only had two movies. He should have came out with a
Hmm.
third one, but at the same time, they're like, you know what, he all good. But with those two movies, we'll end it there. And then Tom Holland came, and they just go, okay, I see what's going on. You're doing some things, at a good stance. And it just bears with me and going, oh, okay, I'm liking these Spider-Man, movies and everything. But then when I saw Into the Spider-Verse, I'm like, you know what? Forget about them. It's all about Miles Morales right now. So that's all for me.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is my love for animation as well. I've talked about a lot
Hmm.
on this show that, and you're a pretty big anime fan too.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Animation.
Hmm.
And so I really am blown away by what they did
Hmm.
artistically in this film because
Hmm.
I think we sort of have an idea of what CG looks like, and I think that they took it so much further with just how artistic it was. I love like the graffiti style and the other styles, the comic book style, where like
Hmm.
there's a lot of word bubbles and even like the textures. I just think it's so creative. Like not only is it a great story and told well, but it's
Yes,
also
yes,
just
yes,
beautiful to look at. And
yes.
so that's another I'm extremely biased, like I said, because I do like animation, and that's
I feel
probably
you.
another reason why I really like this one.
Mhm. Yeah, and then with this movie, there's you get a lot of there. People are trying to figure out what's so great about this movie and why should I keep watching this movie over and over again. And there's like multiple things. Like the first thing you want to talk about in this movie is about the importance of mentoring, because
Yeah.
in the movie we see how basically have you talked about the plot or anything? Is it
I
okay if I
haven't
talk about
actually.
it?
Let me do that really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I
You
want
do
to
it.
say to the people listening that we will talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen the
Yes.
movie, probably a good idea to watch it and then come back to this conversation. But here is the quick synopsis of this film, Into
Mm,
the Spider Verse. Bitten by a radioactive spider in the subway, Brooklyn teenager Miles Morales suddenly develops mysterious powers that transform him into the one and only Spider Man. When he meets Peter Parker, he soon realizes that there are many others who share his special high flying talents. Miles must now use his newfound skills to battle the evil Kingpin, a hulking madman who can open portals to other universes and pull different versions of Spider Man into our world. That's kind of what happened. We'll
yeah,
dive
it
in
is.
a
Yeah,
little bit further. But
yes,
go ahead. What were
yes.
you going to say?
So, like I was saying, how about the importance of mentoring. So basically, you gave great analysis. I love it, and people are Marvel fans know about this, and they talk about it in almost every Marvel show.
Hmm.
The multiverse, basically, basically saying if I'm here, what if there's another version of me, and this person can do this kind of thing, and this person can do this kind of thing, and that's what we found out with this movie Into the Spider Verse. So
Yeah.
basically when we found out that Peter Parker and Miles Morales' world died, we was like, what? What just happened? But then when we see all these other spider people come in, we're just going, there's more spider people. So basically, the multiverse is actually a real thing for Marvel. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so when I was talking about the importance of mentoring, I was talking about how, and how we had the older version of Peter B. Parker uh, going to show the new Spider-Man, which is Miles Morales, all of, the unique things about becoming Spider-Man and whatnot. Now, granted, I will say he kind of lacked in his mentorship, but I will say that Peter B. Parker, he did give him a lot of great, uh, like a lot of great skills, and a lot of great things to remember, even if he's not even there in his own universe. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, completely agree. And
Yeah.
what's interesting about this film is that, this was made by Sony Pictures. So this is like,
Yes.
technically a Sony property. And I noticed when I went to go back and watch this, you used to be able to watch it on Netflix, but it got
Mm.
pulled. I had to rent it
Mm.
actually.
Oh
Um,
wow, really?
so, but it's interesting that like this idea of multiverses is sort of introed in this movie before we see it in any of
Mm.
the other Marvel franchise, like you were saying.
Mm.
And I don't know, it's just interesting to go back and look at like how normalized multiverses are now versus when we saw this back in 2018.
Exactly. Yeah, and then like along with Peter B. Parker, he also has uncle.
Hmm.
People. If you don't know Uncle Aaron, he's also in the movie. However, he's a prowler, so that's a spoiler. Just FYI. But how his uncle. His uncle Aaron was always there for Miles, and he's very close with him. However, his uncle made some pretty bad decisions, in life
Hmm.
because of, he talked about how him and his dad were like the best of friends and everything along the way. However, his dad went on the right path as being a police officer. However, his uncle Aaron went towards the wrong path by making some poor choices.
Yeah, 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 and that's explored a lot in the film, and
Mm.
also like the importance of family. I think
Yes.
those connections, elevating those connections above
Hmm.
just your own, I think, agenda.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and usually, so in this next section, I want to talk a little bit about some quick facts that I
Hmm.
looked up before. I did a little research on this today. Fun research because got to watch the movie and read about it, but kind of
Nice.
wanted to talk a little bit about the style of animation. So here's a little quick excerpt from that. The
Hmm.
unique animation style of Spider Verse aims to make the viewer feel as if they're in the pages of a comic book. According to Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the film combines the latest computer generated animation technology with hand-drawn artistry. It was very it was very important to us that every frame of the movie was refined by the artist's hands after the visuals were rendered by computers. If you freeze any part of the movie at any time, it will look like an illustration with hand touches and all.
And
Hand-drawn
that is
touches.
actually true. That is actually true.
And I think that's, to me, that's what really sets it apart. I think there's a lot of good CG out
Hmm.
there, but I remember a while back telling Nick that, and my friends like that sometimes in computer animated movies, I don't know if you feel this way, but like their eyes look a little unfocused or something, or
Girl,
like it's a little bit
yes.
flat. And I think what's missing is like that extra detail, those extra textures, and I feel like this movie did a really good job with that. So you can really tell that while it is created with a computer, you see the artist's hands have touched every frame because there's so much detail in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was looking at this movie. I'm going, they like legit very deep into this movie. They like with when Miles' dad pointed the gun at him, and sure enough, with everything going on, this was like a scary moment. Seeing this and you
Yeah.
just go, okay, what's about to happen? Is this about to be the end of Miles, or is this about to be the end of the movie? What's going to happen? But then when he disappeared, it was like, oh, thank God. My heart was like pounding the moment I saw that scene. I was going, please don't, please don't, please don't, please don't. And then all of a sudden he just disappeared. I'm going, bless. Okay, this. You got me, but at the same time, you scared me at the first part.
Yes, yes. I think they bring this like level of humanity to the characters. They feel real, and
Mm-hmm.
the stakes feel high because we're so invested in them by that point,
Mm-hmm.
especially Miles. Yeah, I felt the
Exactly.
exact same way. And completing this film required 180 animators, the
Ooh.
largest crew ever used by Sony Pictures Animation for a film. Which I don't know a lot about Sony Pictures Animation. I'll be
Same.
honest.
Same.
I feel like this really definitely propelled them. You mentioned we almost did the Mitchells versus the Machines,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I love that movie too, so good. But I was kind of like, hey, just throwing this out there. We haven't talked about Into the Spider Verse yet, and you were like, what? Okay, that one we've got to talk about first, because I love that movie, but I feel like this really set the tone. But it's just
Yes.
nice to see another animation studio sort of compete with like DreamWorks and Pixar, and you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's kind of nice to see somebody else in there and done so well. But 180 animators, that's a big team. And
That is a big team.
yeah. The last thing I want to say, it's not really a fact so much as just like a more like
Mm-hmm.
a quote. Phil
Mm-hmm.
Lord and Christopher Miller had a goal for the movie: inspire young people to become heroes, inspire grown-ups to help them do it, and remind us all that you don't need to be bitten by a radioactive spider to do your part. You are powerful,
Oh.
and we are counting on you. And I was like, oh, I think it
Oh.
goes back to that, like you said, that importance of mentorship.
Yeah, that's really fun. Actually, I'm gonna have to fact today. So, because you said that, this movie, when the movie came out, it was like well known for everybody. Kids loved it, and so much
Yeah.
more. And I remember, uh, so just to let everybody know, we basically we cosplay. We're good friends. We cosplay. We volunteer and everything along the way. And I actually got the Spider-Man suit from the movie before it came out. Now, because of this, I started posting pictures and everything along the way, and many people were like, "Oh my god, I love you!" Really cool, cool. And then there was this one particular young man, him and his brother. They went to go see Into the Spider Verse, and his mom tweeted that you know, watching this movie, her kids were so astounded by the movie that they wanted to actually cosplay Miles Morales and everything because it actually represented so much for them. And when I saw that tweet, I tweeted them a picture of myself as Miles Morales. And after that, me and them we kept talking, and we're still talking to this day. So
Oh wow, what a cool connection.
their boys actually still think of me as Miles Morales. So I send them like gifts and everything. I send them like things that Spider Man related, but they think that they're actually getting it from Miles Morales.
That's so cute. I love
Yeah.
that. It reminds me of
Yes.
like, visiting at hospitals and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's so cool. I'm glad that
Exactly.
you're able to make that connection. That's really sweet.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love cosplay, and if people know me, like here in Texas, I'm well known as like the Texas Spider Man. I'm one of the Texas Spider Mans that everybody knows me as, and just cosplaying him, it goes a lot with what the movie said. Stan Lee was in this movie, R.I.P.
Yeah.
And I miss him. And there was a part in the movie where when they're at the store, and it also what this movie is talking about social responsibility. And
Yes.
I think the movie it was challenging people saying that anyone could wear the mask, as Stan Lee said. And it
Mhm.
just when he said that, it got to me. It's like I can wear I can wear the mask. I put on my suit, and I make a difference for kids, and I can make a difference for other people as well. Doesn't mean if I have superpowers or not, I am going to make a difference for somebody in a way.
Yeah, I mean
Mm-hmm.
that's powerful, and it's the creator of Spider-Man saying that. So, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And
That is true.
and I agree with you. I have to admit I started volunteering pretty much after I started cosplaying superheroes. I always
Mm-hmm.
said there's just something about wearing that outfit that makes you think like I could do more. I could do something really good. And I've cosplayed since I was a teenager, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't start volunteering till I wore like superhero stuff because
Mm-hmm.
it does have such a big impact on kids, and
Yes.
it's so positive. So it's kind of like how can I take this positivity that I experience like at conventions and do more with it? And that's kind of how I found, groups of people that were into that and have
Mm-hmm.
continued to do that. And it's, it's been really, really fun. It's very rewarding. I tweeted the other day that like I actually have more fun doing that than I have making them, which was, my hobby for a long time was sewing and creating stuff. And I still like to do that, but I
Mm-hmm.
have to admit, like, yeah, the rush that you get from making
Oh,
somebody happy is like
mm-hmm.
more fun. It just
Oh,
is.
most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah. So 100% agree. I love that. And I think that speaks to very much the themes in the film. So totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about the cast. This is a stacked cast. I mean, you've
Girl,
got,
yep.
yeah, you've got
Girl, that.
Shamik Moore,
Mm-hmm.
Haley as Miles Morales, Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker,
Mm-hmm.
Haley Steinfeld as Gwen Stacy. I always forget it's Haley. Um, Mahershala Ali as Uncle
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, Brian Tyree Henry as Jefferson Davis, Lily Tomlin as Aunt May. Let's see who else I reckon it's Zoe Kravitz as Mary Jane, John Mulaney as Spider
Mm-hmm.
Ham, and Nicolas Cage. Can't forget to say that he's Spider-Man Noir.
Oh my
Catherine
God.
Hahn as Doc Ock, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot that Chris Pine is the first Peter Parker voice. But
Right. I
I
was
was
like,
like,
hold on.
when
That
I
I was
heard that,
like,
I was like,
that
oh
that sounds so
yeah,
familiar.
yeah. But it's got oh, and I guess Oscar Isaac has one line, but I don't
Yeah.
remember what he said. But anyway,
Yes.
point is, great
Mm-hmm.
casting, and I think that helps with the film too, for sure.
Oh, most definitely. And
Go
with
ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say like with Chris Pine being like the Spider Man, I was going, y'all better bring a Spider Man in this movie or else I'm like leaving. Okay, so
Yeah, I think his like death too in the beginning is such a shock. I didn't see that coming.
well,
Um,
it's basically well when Miles saw Spider Man, I think this is when the hype like the whole movie started. Is because he thought he took responsibility for Peter B. Parker's death. That he was like, you know what, I did this to him, so I need to take the mantle and save New York City from all the danger that comes to it.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, it propels him into being a hero. I like that line where he says like I don't want this, and he's like that's not how it works.
Exactly,
You don't
exactly,
get to ask or make a decision, and the
mm,
responsibility is kind of thrust upon you.
exactly.
And yeah, he's definitely got that sort of kind of a familiar, hero's journey where
Mm,
um he starts off not wanting to be the hero, but by the end he sort of grows into those shoes. And it's a really good way to do it too, I think, because as the audience, this is a new, for a lot of people, version of Spider-Man. So to
mm,
kind of get that blessing right off the bat from the Spider-Man,
mm,
the original, it kind of, I think, is a good segue for the audience into accepting Miles as he learns to accept himself too in this role. And I don't know, I like the way those two things are sort of happening simultaneously.
mm. Okay, I see. I see where you're going from there. Oh yes, most definitely, I see it.
So we kind of talked about the cast a little bit. Oh, I guess I should mention, like I said, I'm not as familiar with the team that directed it. It's Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rotham. I'm gonna look at their bios really fast.
No, you good?
Looks like they worked on like Puss in Boots, Monsters versus Aliens, other Sony Picture Animation. So I guess I
Okay,
do know of other Sony Picture Animation projects, but
yeah.
just maybe not quite as well as this. It looks
Mm-hmm.
like they have a lot of background in like special effects and things like that. But yeah, okay, so kind of, yeah, a little bit not new to the scene, but not as prominent as some others. Okay,
I
good
got
to know.
you. Mm-hmm.
Definitely look forward to more from them, though, for sure.
I can't
Um,
wait for the second one. I'm gonna tell you that. That's for
oh,
sure.
so is that announced, and does it have like a release date yet, or?
It's coming out in 2022, so next year. But
Oh, okay.
more likely, some of these movies they will probably move it back to like later on within the year. You know how like they did with the what's the name, Black Widow. So how she was supposed
Oh,
to come out, I
okay.
think in like April, but then they moved it back to another month, and then such, such and such, But more than likely, they'll probably do that with the Spider-Man 2 movie. Hopefully not.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, they also worked on the Lego movie, it looks like, as well. Okay, a lot of stuff that I'm
Yes,
familiar with.
nice,
But I guess I
nice.
just didn't put it doesn't quite have the same ring to it, you know?
Yeah.
But oh, that's so awesome. I'm very excited about that for sure.
hmm
Like anything that they put out, I'd be excited about. But more Spider Verse content is appreciated.
Yes. Well, hopefully they, because I know they're talking about adding more spider people into the movies. So
Mm,
what we saw in the first one, we saw like the Spider Family with Peter B. Parker, Miles Morales. You see Spider Noir, Spider Ham, which still to this day still gets me. Uh,
yeah, so hilarious.
you
John
got
Mulaney is so
Spider
good.
Gwen. What's her name? And then the young lady. What's the young lady with the
Gwen
robot?
Stacy.
No, no, no. Young lady. I forget her name. The small one. The young lady.
Oh, the one with the mech, the kind of anime
Yeah.
inspired. Gosh, I can't
Yes.
remember,
I
but
can't
I
remember
know
how
which one you're talking about.
exactly. And just seeing them like working together as a family, because teamwork makes the dream work, as they always say. And just seeing
Yeah.
them doing all this kind of it's really cool. But then, spoiler for everybody, towards the end, you see Spider-Man 2099 talking to like a different version. You're going, oh, okay, so 2099 is coming. And then
Mhm.
I know they announced that the Japanese Spider-Man is coming. So
Oh,
if
interesting.
yeah, so if it's still around, like if we can go on YouTube right now, we can try to go find the original Spider-Man Japanese. That'd be real cool. Hopefully they put in. I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a universe where Spider-Man is actually built of a ton of spiders.
Oh, no, I didn't know that, but I mean, makes sense, he's a Spider-Man.
Yeah, so this I think it's like, and then there's like a spider cop, which I'm just going, okay, interesting, but
You're like, "How
okay.
does that work? Hmm,
It,
interesting."
it, like how does this work? But yeah, you just see like all these different spider people coming into the movies, and I'm just going, please put in a good amount for of this next one, so that way we can actually get a third Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
That would be really cool. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of these characters, like, live action too eventually. That
hmm
would be really neat. I think the girl that you were referencing earlier, I think her name is Kimiko Glenn?
That's it.
Or
I
maybe
think that's
that's the
what it
name of
is.
the actress. Oh,
Is
no,
it?
it's the name of the actress. Okay,
Oh, it's gonna
so
be
if
okay.
her name's Kimiko Glenn,
She plays.
then
Oh, she
she
plays Penny Parker. That's what it is.
Penny Parker, that's what it
Penny
was,
Parker.
yeah,
Yes.
and I just watched this, but,
Look, I'm
um
look. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Um, well, okay, so we kinda talked about the beginning. What are
Mhm.
some of your other, favorite scenes from the movie?
So another favorite scene of mine was the part where before they go to the I think it's to the dinner and everything, when they like foil Kingpin's plan, and
Mhm.
Miles just goes, I'm not suitable for this. But then he goes back to the shed where Aunt May is like, oh, I was waiting for you, and that's when that one song, "What's Up, Danger," starts playing,
Mhm.
and
Yes, the soundtrack in this is awesome. That's
every
another
time
really big plus.
every time that scene comes, I'm just like, all right, I gotta go suit up. This is my scene right here, because he goes, he looks at the suits, and he's just going like, but what if these suits don't fit me? That's when he knows, that's when you make your own suit and you make it into your own style. And just seeing him jump from that skyscraper,
Yeah.
just that was just so magnificent. I love this so much. I'm just like, I gotta replay this all over and over again. It's just so beautiful.
It
Because
is.
it's like slow motion, and he just know he's like, all right, cool, this is my moment. I'm about to be Spider-Man. Everybody about to flip out, and so much more. And as soon as he's flipped that web, I'm just lost, and I'm going, well, this is my movie. This is the movie for me, y'all.
Yes. I mean, I think, that's something that's always been fun about the character of Spider-Man is that he
Mhm,
has fun doing it. He,
mhm,
like the way that he jumps from building to building with the
mhm,
webs, and his attitude, he's a very like fun character. And so
mhm,
Miles is obviously different from Peter. He's got a different origin story, and he's got a different personality, but still got that. He's by the end of the movie, he like enjoys being Spider-Man. and it's
exactly.
just watching him have fun. We're having fun watching him, basically.
And with that, Miles discovered he had unique talents and he also had unique
Yeah.
gifts. And we see that with different people. He so basically what I was talking about, like how he had to be Spider-Man, he needs to use Spider-Man in his own style. You know, in
Yes.
the comics it shows that he can go invisible and he also
Hmm.
has lightning powers. And we can also see that in the games as well. And he had to be his own style for Spider-Man. Now, when you see was it Spider Noir, seeing his fight style, it was really funny because it's basically depicts on, like, how Batman back in the day with what's his name, Adam West, whenever he punched somebody, it showed like the blam and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was his
He's
thing.
very old school comic type
Exactly.
hero.
And then you got Spider Ham, who was like Looney Tune style, which is kind of funny.
Yes.
You got Penny, who's like futuristic and everything some way, and then you got Spider Gwen and Peter B. Parker. They're both like they're at the present moment, but at the same time they have their own style of fighting.
Yes. Yeah, and they're in different places in their lives. The
Mm-hmm.
Peter B. Parker is different from the Peter Parker in Miles'
Mm-hmm.
universe because he's a little older, a little more
Mm-hmm.
jaded. I feel like he is definitely stepping in for like the fans, probably like my age and older that, grew up with Spider-Man, but now they're adults. Maybe they're the parents bringing their kids to this movie.
Oh yes,
And
yes, yes,
then
yes.
yeah, and then Gwen, man, people love that character too. I've seen, girls cosplay Spider Gwen for years. So it's
Oh
just really
yes.
fun to finally kind of see that on screen and learn a little bit more about her. But you're right, like every
Mm-hmm.
single spider person uh has like a different, has different talents. And I think I really like Miles' powers. Like I like the invisibility, I like the lightning.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something different, and every he sticks to everything. I like that too. I think
Oh,
that's
most definitely.
funny. Played for laughs in the beginning when he says it's puberty or
Mm-hmm.
something.
And he had to
um
go. He had to go and sing a song. Like, I'm like, bro, you got this. Just let go. You got this, and
just
everything's gonna
let
work.
go. That seems to be a theme in the movie too, just let go.
Just let go.
Yeah,
Well,
I
okay.
really
What about
like. Oh,
you?
go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say, what's your favorite scene?
So I don't know if it's just one scene, maybe a collection of scenes, but I really, really like the relationship between Miles and his father. I feel
Oh
like you don't
yes.
see a lot of, I mean, you do see positive relationships with dads, but I feel like this is
Mm-hmm.
like a different one, a different type.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Miles uh is from Brooklyn. Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
is changing. That's happening in the movie, which I felt like was a
Mm-hmm.
subtle commentary on gentrification, but they don't go deep. They just kind of touch on it.
Mm-hmm.
But Miles is going to a private school,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not too pumped about that because it's hard when your neighborhood, all the people that you grew up with and went to school with, you're having to like leave them, go to this new school where you're not as accepted. I mean, he's not like an outcast there, but
Yeah.
his crew that he ran with, they're back at home, and they
Mm-hmm.
they miss him, and he misses them. So he feels a little bit of that tension, but he was able to get into the school because of his high test scores, and he got like a scholarship, which they kind of briefly touch on that too. He's like, I just won a lottery, and his dad's like, no, you earned your spot and you
Mm-hmm.
deserve to be there. But he kind of, through the course of this movie, he's really not just accepting the Spider-Man role, but also the fact that he's so talented, but he's young and he's kind of coming into his own. So this is all new for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I just liked the dynamic with his family, because the Spider-Man that we know growing up was always, he Uncle Ben is gone, and there's
Mm-hmm.
Aunt May, and
Yeah.
he doesn't get to have this, like, it's kind of fun how some of the newer superheroes, I feel like, have more of a support system at home. Like, they don't have to be completely
Mm-hmm.
alone. They can
Yes. Exactly.
have like really, really positive relationships. And
Yeah.
his dad being a cop, I mean, that's tough,
Yeah.
like that scene where he's stuck in the car, and kids
Mm-hmm.
are taking pictures like he's in the back of a cop car, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
ugh. It's
Yes.
just not cool, it's not really super cool to
Oh.
have
Oh
this
yes. Yes.
authoritarian dad.
I
But
mean,
I just like the
my mom
relationship.
is the same way. So trust me, I understand what Miles is because my mom's also a police officer. So I understand where like what this movie speaks to me in so many ways.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, in the beginning of the movie, he's more enamored with his uncle. You kind of talked about his uncle a little bit,
Hmm.
but later we find out he's actually a bad guy, which I loved that twist when you find out he's a villain.
Hmm.
Like he's the you said is he called the Prowler?
Yeah, the Prowler.
Okay, the Prowler. Yeah. And he's like, "Whoa, this is not," and that he was trying to kill him. I love
Hmm.
when Spider Noir 2 goes, "That is such a cool origin story." But yeah, it's definitely a spin, but yeah, I don't know. So not one scene, but I really liked that aspect. What about you? What's
Okay.
another thing that you liked about it?
So since you was talking about the whole dad thing, I there was a part where it actually got to me because it made me think of when me and my mom's relationship in a way. Because sometimes we like to butt heads, but at the same time, we do care for one another. And there was a part where I think Miles he was sitting behind the closed door and everything, and his dad was coming up. Oh no, I remember I think he was webbed to the door or something, and his dad came up trying to talk to him and everything, and he said that I see this spark in you. It's amazing. It's why I push you. It's why he pushed him to do all these certain things, like get into the school and
Yeah.
everything else along the way. But then when continuing on, his dad's like, I love you, and he's saying you don't have to say it back though, but you know from that moment that Miles actually cares so much about his dad, and his dad cares so much for his son that he would do anything for him just to make sure that he is safe and secure wherever he goes.
Yes, and that's kind of a theme of a lot of the, I guess, authority figures in Miles' life really are very positive, like his father. There's also
Yes,
that teacher that's like, I can tell you're trying to fail, and
yes,
you should not do that. Like, you are
mm-hmm.
talented, you deserve to be here. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it speaks to the importance, like you mentioned at the beginning, of like mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love that too. I also, this is just like a quick aside. Some of my favorite scenes are with Doc Ock. I
Oh my
love
God!
I love that spin on Doc Ock. It's great. Although,
It,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, you good, you good, you go ahead.
I loved her character design.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really see it coming. I started to sort of have thoughts in that scene where she reveals who she is.
Yes.
But also kind of going back to like mentioning earlier that I was sort of an anime fan, she reminds the way that they designed her and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that she's like this evil genius
Mm-hmm.
reminds me a lot. Any old school anime fans out there would know, but there was a show called Tenchi, and there was a character called Washu, and she was literally a mad
Girl,
scientist. And they look so, it's impossible to me that they didn't think of her when they designed this character. So just
hey,
both of those things about it, and I love her
tell,
suit and
tell me about it.
everything. So
Yeah.
I liked, and I like the reveal is when Peter B. Parker is like, "What'd you say your name was?"
Oh, it's
And she's like,
but
Octavia.
when I
Yeah.
saw that, I'm going, hold up now. My mind flicked. It was like, hold on. Did she just say Doc? Did she just say Ock? I was like, that don't mean. And then the tentacle came. I'm like, oh Lord, here we go.
Yeah, and that's what's so fun about this multiverse stuff too, is
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost like every character can be sort of like in a different place than what we're used to, and it just sort
Mm-hmm.
of makes it fresh. Plus, I love Catherine Hahn, and I think she does a good she's good at that character. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just had to mention I really like that scene, and just the way they animated, kind of like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about how cool it looks when Miles is like fighting. I
Mm-hmm.
like the way it looked too when with all her like octopus tentacles. It was
Mm-hmm.
just really fun every time she was in a scene. She was
Oh
a good
yes,
bad guy.
she was. I will say like some of the villains in this movie they were okay. Not all, but some of them were okay.
Yeah,
Like
which ones were okay, you think?
I would say Scorpion was some he was a good person. He was good to go into the fight, and
Yeah, yeah.
he wasn't afraid to go after Miles and them.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of good bad guys. They kind of, some of them are almost more like cameos, like Green Goblin and like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
that Scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever they're on screen, they're pretty fun. What did you
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
of this interpretation of Kingpin?
So I'm not gonna lie. So basically, in the old, figuring, in the old movies and whatnot, I figured Kingpin was African American. That's
Oh, good
because I
point.
watched Daredevil. You remember how we watched
Oh yeah,
Daredevil?
yeah.
Kingpin, yeah, Kingpin, is African American. But then you look at this and reading the comments, you go, oh, they just like the old in the Daredevil movie. They just spent that. But then seeing this version of Kingpin, I'm going, he can't get through a door. Um,
Yeah, it's an
how?
interesting art style. I like that
Ex-
all the characters are so different looking. It's not
yeah,
like they're all kind of like a blueprint of the same thing. He's very interesting
yeah.
artistically.
I mean, like if he played football, he would tackle down everybody on the team and just go, oh yeah, that was nothing. But yeah, they like this version of Kingpin. It was a little bit interesting to see,
Yeah.
and I will say like if they brought him back for like this the second movie, but do a different
Yeah, they
version
could.
of
He
him,
didn't die, so.
exactly, because in the whole movie, he's trying to bring back his wife and his son, and we saw that from was it the scene where they went to stop the machine, and we saw it
Mhm.
from like the railroad station, and just
Yeah.
going like seeing this, if you bring it back, like if you turn the machine back on, maybe a different version of Fisk will come out, and people
Yeah.
go, oh, okay, so we got older Fisk, we got some more people coming in and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah. And we also learned too that like, because I think he tries to spin it like Spider-Man killed them, and then later you find out like he did. It's
Yep,
like, dang.
exactly.
Pretty ruthless bad guy. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that. You're right. I think it's been a while since I've seen some of the movies, but that
Mhm.
is an interesting choice, I guess, because he's a different version of Kingpin than the one that we're kind of used to seeing in movies.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, kind of more of the old school mobster type Kingpin.
Mhm.
Hmm. What's another scene or another thing that you liked in the film?
I would say that I love the fact that Peter B. Parker went back to May. I mean, went back not May, but
Yeah,
back to Mary Jane, because how they were like, all right, here's my story, and this is what happened, blah blah blah. And then when we see Peter B. Parker, we go, okay, it's good. And all of a sudden, we see what happened between him and Mary Jane, which going, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm sorry that happened to you. But then towards the end, you see him reconnecting with her and saying, hey, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna fix everything, all my mistakes that I've done. It won't be great, but at the same time, I'm going to fix the mistakes that I've done somewhat for you.
yeah. And you can tell, like, I think with Peter, his stance on, he kind of ended the marriage ended because he didn't want to have children.
Hmm.
I think because he just saw that he was always in constant danger. And he's
Hmm.
like, why bring more potential, victims to
Yeah.
this lifestyle? And I think
Yes.
a lot of times the kind of old school blueprint of superheroes was kind of like that, right? Like, there's a lot of heroes that are like Batman. They're like loners, or
Hmm.
everyone has died. They're an orphan. They're no one's around, and it kind of stays that way. And it's sort
Hmm.
of like, well, this is safer if I don't let anyone in my life. But I
Most
like that
definitely.
this movie is all about like actually, your family, your friends,
Hmm.
it makes you stronger, and it's a detriment when you don't have that, like his uncle choosing not to put his family first, and Kingpin not putting his family first, and then Peter
Exactly.
Parker's got to learn that lesson too, that like he
Hmm.
can be happy and adjusted and still be Peter Parker. And that's kind
Exactly.
of
True.
his
True.
arc.
Oh yes. What about you? What's another favorite scene of yours that you love watching?
Let's see. Let me think. Well, I absolutely love the way that all the dimension stuff looks. Like, I
Hmm.
like the way that they represent that. Like when the characters are sort of blipping out, we learn
Oh
from
yeah.
Doc Ock that there's a time limit to if how long they can be in this plane of reality, and also how it looks when like everything's getting worse and worse and worse.
Exactly.
And then finally, when it kind of culminates to that big fight scene at the end,
Hmm.
and there's like, trains whizzing by and
Oh,
buildings and stuff like that. I love the way all that looks. I think it,
oh
it
yes.
looks beautiful.
That was really
And
dope.
so that was probably one of my favorite scenes.
And then like with the towards the end of that scene when Miles' dad comes, like, oh, my son, and then he electrocuted a Kingpin. I'm just going, yes, that's what I
Yes.
needed to see.
But
You
he
know, and he
finally
did,
harnessed his powers.
but then he did the whole the thing that his uncle showed him, Uncle Aaron showed him, like the hey. I laughed
Yes,
when he
that
did
was
it.
hilarious.
I was like, hey, I was like, hey.
That's so cute. I love all the like growth moments for Miles throughout the movie too. But yeah,
Yes.
that was such a good payback. And Spider-Man kind of always has that moment where he's like on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember with Tom Holland, he's like covered in rubble. Like there's always kind of a scene where he's got to kind of like pick himself back up. And so yeah, getting to see his dad sort of call out to him and motivate him, and then
Mm-hmm.
he sends King Pig spinning. He's like, "Why don't
Almost.
you end this for me?" And he like throws him. It's really
Exactly.
great. Yeah,
Exactly.
that was a
That's
good
true.
one.
That
Oh, I
was.
like too Aunt May in this universe. She's kind of like an Alfred.
Oh yeah, she wasn't afraid to be herself. You know, she was like, okay, well, guess what? I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna knock some people's out. You know, I'm gonna if a baddie want to come, I got this. Okay, so nothing wrong with that.
I love when Peter Parker's like, "Oh, that's like my little shed where I keep all my Spider-Man stuff." And then
Mm-hmm.
it like opens up into that layer. He's like,
You're like,
"Oh,
okay,
never
so that's
mind."
that's interesting. Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, I like this version of Aunt May. She seems like she can really hold her own. And the scene too where they're all in her house and she's like, "Can y'all take this outside?" I thought was
That
pretty
was
good
hilarious.
too.
I love it.
I
I
thought she
will
did a good
say
job.
she better be in the second one because
Yeah, I enjoyed
I don't
her.
I don't know if it was in the layer, but Spider Man actually has a car that's like a spider car. So I don't know if it was
Oh,
actually in the movie, but I want to if they do put it in the second one, that would be pretty awesome to see.
yes, there was definitely a jet because I remember Peter Parker was like, "Oh yeah, Aunt May was
Mm-hmm.
like this except without all the jets and
Mm-hmm.
stuff."
Oh yes,
But yeah, that would be cool. I bet like in the second one I would think like maybe Miles and Aunt May have like a closer connection, you know?
yes, yes, and then
And he can like go to her for new costumes and whatnot.
and then I hope with like the whole Spider family coming out, I hope that they bring in Annie. So Annie is the daughter of, or she's like a daughter or a friend of Peter and Mary Jane. Let me check this real fast. Hold on.
Oh yeah, no, no,
Anna
take your time.
Parker. Right. So, but yeah, there is a Anna Mae Parker. That's her name. So she is the daughter of
Okay.
Peter Parker and Mary Jane. But there is
Oh,
a
okay.
in the comics there's a portion of it where they reference to Michael Jackson, and I hope they put this in. That'd be funny if they put it in the movie. So basically, it says Peter Parker. He's looking at Annie, and he goes, "Annie, are you okay? Like Annie, are you okay?" And I'm just going, if they put this in this movie, I will bust out laughing so
That's
much.
so funny.
Exactly.
Yeah, they should definitely do that. I like that. I could definitely see that if they continue like the multiverse stuff. Because at the end of this
Yes.
movie, it looks like he communicates with
Spider
Gwen
Gwen.
Stacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gwen said yes.
So he's apparently needed again.
Oh yes,
So
most definitely.
yeah.
I mean, with the multiverse going on, there's more likely going to be something crazy happening with the next movie.
Yeah. And did you say earlier that it's going to be like in the future?
Uh,
Or no? Okay, maybe I misheard you.
no, it was Spider-Man 2099. He's from the future. He
Oh,
was in it.
oh, oh, okay. I get it. I
Yes.
get it. Okay.
So, but hopefully they do go in a few years prior to that that towards what happened to see what's
Hmm.
going on between the new Spider-Man for Miles Morales and other Spider people as well.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. I'm
Mm-hmm.
following now. Yeah. I haven't read them, so I'm kind of like learning a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other scenes or things that you wanted to touch on?
I will say that I will need to watch it again. Just to see like all the great scenes from it and so much more. Also to see Stan Lee again because Stan Lee. I think this was his last film or
Yeah, I think you're
last. Yeah,
right, and he, like he read the lines and everything, so yeah, it was,
yeah,
like, I think his last performance, and
his
for him
last
to
movie.
enter the Spider-Man film is really,
Yeah, well, like his quote,
important.
the quote I have it actually pulled up. It says like that person who helps others simply because it should or must be done, and because it
Mm.
is the right thing to do, is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero.
Oh, I
And
love that.
right, and basically because that's what you and I do. We basically we're out there helping people whenever we can. We're making a difference with or without a mask, and we have a lot of fun doing so. And people love that.
Yeah.
That's what we actually need in life. We need things to bring us up, so that way we won't be let down by whatever goes on towards our lives or what happens in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I definitely feel that it is, like, a very positive thing, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is touching that that was, like, his last film,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I love watching this movie. I've seen it, a few times, and we'll definitely see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I get another interesting thing about this movie is that it's 2 hours, which is not typical for a lot of animated
Right.
films.
The moment you walk in there, okay, so you know how like people go eat popcorn and they just eat when with the previews and it's like, oh, I'm out of popcorn. I legit waited until I went to watch the movie. I'm eating my popcorn like halfway through the movie. I'm looking, I'm going, where's my popcorn? I thought this movie should have been ended. I was like, nope, this movie ain't ended at all.
Yeah, because like, kids' movies are often, like, an hour or, like, an hour and a
Hmm.
half, but I think because it's such a big story, because 'cause they've
Yes,
gotta get into the not only do they have to get into this, like, concept of all these multiverses, but also each character, I love the way that there's that, like, pattern of reintroducing, like, "So this is how I became Spider-Man," "This is how I became
exactly.
Spider-Gwen, this is how," so they
Hmm.
kind of there's so much ground to cover, but
Hmm.
you definitely don't feel the runtime, other than you missing your popcorn. um, I wasn't I never looked at my watch or anything. I
Yeah.
think that can be tough to do. I think the reason why a lot of animated films are so short is because that is difficult to do, and it's difficult to, like, keep kids' attention and,
Hmm.
like, keep things going for 2 hours, but they did a really good job with this film for sure.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, and now I can't think of that. I mean, hey, I wasn't really, like, a Post Malone fan, but I feel like this movie kinda made me more of one just because I like that song
Hmm.
that's
I
that's in
like
the
when
beginning.
when I heard that, I was like, I gotta find the soundtrack, and
Yeah, the
I
soundtrack's awesome.
it is so beautiful. I love records, like vinyl records, so I had to go buy it on vinyl. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, it sounds so beautiful,
Yeah, and it's
so
fun
much.
seeing, like, a film like this with different music styles in it because I
Hmm.
think too,
Oh yeah.
like, a lot of animated films are very traditional or, like, I mean, you just don't hear, like, ever any, like, hip hop or
Hmm.
electronic music, and so I think because of, like, the style of the film, the animation and everything, I loved seeing that or hearing that too. So I was like,
True.
"Ooh, this is cool." Like, this is, like, a legitimately cool soundtrack for a kids
Hmm.
film. Like, you just don't get that often. So, I mean, I like
That is true.
other, soundtracks, but I thought that was
Hmm.
interesting about this film too.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Well, this brings me to my last couple of questions then.
Hmm.
Number one, uh, if I know we talked about it during this episode, but if you had to
Hmm.
summarize it, why do you love this movie so much? Why do you think you keep returning to it?
It's just the development, for people to know more and more about Spider-Man, but from a different perspective. You know, people think Spider-Man is just regular uh, some regular person who goes out there fighting bad guys. However, most people don't know that there are different versions of this Spider-Man, and because of this movie, it actually brings out a lot for people, and also it also brings out representation for people of color as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's I feel like this movie does a good job, I hope,
Mhm.
of changing hearts and minds of people that don't understand that. I growing up, I would always hear people say like, "Well, why do we need that?" What
Exactly,
difference does it
most
make?
definitely.
Um, I remember, like, I have this memory of when I worked at a comic shop,
Mhm.
and he was my friend, but he was like openly complaining that they made the newer version of Green Lantern, uh, what's his name, John Stewart. He was like,
Oh
"Why do they
wow.
feel like they have to do that?" And I
Oh
remember there was
goodness.
a guy in the shop that happened to, I wish I knew his name. I see him sometimes at cons, but he makes these comic books about like children that are superheroes. And he's black, and he turned around and said, "You know, you say that, but why can't we have just one?" Like, how does that hurt you if one person in the Justice League is a person of color? Like, how is that
Hmm.
hurting you? You still can have the other Green Lantern, but just give us one or two. We don't have anybody. And he was like just super embarrassed and obviously shut down. He thought he could just say that and like nobody would say anything.
Okay.
And that memory just
Yes.
like stuck with me. And I remember hearing that a lot growing up, that it
Hmm.
wasn't important, or
Yeah.
that it's forced somehow.
Hmm.
And it always really bothered me because, when you're a nerd, you're kind of already in an other category a little bit. You're
Yes,
not the
that is
cool
true.
kids.
Exactly.
And as a girl in that space, and as a Latinx person, a lot of the characters did not look like me. And it
Hmm.
hurt my feelings when people would say things like that, like, oh, they're just adding a female character, or oh, they're just
Hmm.
adding a person of color. I used to think, so then I'm kind of not even accepted in the nerd community either. Not only am I an outsider outside of this, but also in
Hmm.
this community. And I think for a long time, a lot of people felt that way. There was sort of like this, I think because a lot of the characters were, white and male,
Yeah.
a lot of people feel left out. They love those characters, like they love Spider-Man, they love
Hmm.
Batman, and they feel like, oh, I'm accepted because I like those things. And then you hear something like that and it hurts your feelings. You're like, wow, so maybe I'm not accepted. And I think this movie did a really good job of like telling Miles' story and making it so front and center to where I feel like I hope that people see it and have kind of an aha moment. And
Hmm.
then, I know every time I see you wear that costume and you go to, we go to an event or you go to a
Hmm.
convention, and the way that kids respond to you, and specifically kids of color, um,
Hmm.
you see how big of an impact that is. And I remember like when the Wonder Woman movie came out, the fairly recently, a few years ago, I had
Hmm.
tears in my eyes and I was kind of like, I wish they had this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about this Spider-Man movie too. It would have been great to have had this, growing up too. So I
Most
think it's
definitely.
super important. And yeah, I really like, I like that you brought that up, because I think
Hmm.
representation in these films is really important, because there's different kinds of people out there. And they all
There.
deserve their own heroes. And so I really appreciate that.
Exactly, and like to piggyback off what you're talking about, since both of us cosplay, there have been times when I will post a picture because, like you say, both of us love anime, and I love anime so much. And there, I don't know if do you watch My Hero Academia?
Yeah, my husband is like a huge fan. So I've seen
Okay,
quite a few, and we've talked about cosplaying it too. Yeah.
okay. First of all, please cosplay because I would love to see that.
I want
Second
to
of
be
all,
Deku too. I'm
girl,
I'm
yes,
gonna join the
because
Deku
when
club.
because that's the thing. So whenever I cosplay Deku, I did my own version, and many people were like, "Oh, Deku can't be Deku can't be black." Blah blah blah. This, and to them, I say, or to anyone who's listening, oh, this person should be this color. This person. Let me tell you something. It don't matter as long as that person is having fun cosplaying who they want to be. Let them have fun. It makes no sense for you to criticize what they are doing. If I
Yeah.
want to cosplay Batman, which I've actually done, but I've cosplayed a different version of him, let them cosplay that person. If it's they like to have fun, it makes an impact to them and so much more. So do not be, uh, a bigotry towards that, and let those people have fun no matter what.
When you go to a convention,
Hmm.
and you meet other people,
Hmm.
it's like you can be instant friends because you've got so much in common. And so it
Right?
it it really upsets me when people have that reaction. It is terrible, number 1. And then
Hmm.
number 2, yeah, okay, a lot of the anime characters, almost all of them,
Hmm.
are not people of color. They've kind of gotten better in recent years where they're starting to introduce more types of people. But to your credit, you can cosplay whoever you want. If you put on the traditional Spider-Man costume, you're Peter Parker. You can be Peter
Mm-hmm.
Parker, Miles Morales, whoever you want to be. And it should not we shouldn't be limited by that, by what race you are, or age, or anything. It's just we're
Amen.
fans, and
Amen.
it's like cosplay is fun. It's something to celebrate and something to have fun with. And when you're negative like that, it definitely takes the fun out of it. So yeah, be mindful out there of how you're approaching people and what you're saying and how it can affect people, because that's not cool, at all. um but yeah,
You
I
preach it
love
to the
anime
choir.
too, and yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like there's been kind of a movement in the community to try to combat some of that negativity, that I appreciate that it's at least being acknowledged, but I still feel like there's so much more to do. So yeah, definitely do your part, and
Oh
in
yes,
that kind of negativity.
most definitely. After what happened, hearing about what happened to BlurredCon,
Oh
let's just
yeah,
say that
gosh.
was a craziness. But
Yeah.
yes, you should let people cosplay who they want to be. Don't like try to force that person to cosplay somebody that you want them to cosplay.
Yeah, be careful with suggestions. I don't like that
Hmm.
either. It's like, "This is who you are, this is who you look like," and you're like,
Exactly. I was
these are
like,
the
I'm
characters
good.
that I identify with." Sometimes it's personality, sometimes it could be so many different things. So yeah,
Hmm.
totally agree with that. And yeah, I like this movie, like I said, because of the representation is a big part of that. I love
Oh
seeing
yes.
a different, I didn't really mention that he's also, I think he's Afro Latino too, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yes,
his
ma'am.
mother. Yeah, and I think that's cool because he's in Brooklyn, and honestly that makes sense. That's just like a story that we haven't gotten to hear a lot and see a lot represented on film. So I thought that was really, it's cool to see a kid with parents that are speaking Spanish. So I thought that was really neat too.
And
Um,
his mama don't play in this movie. I'm telling you this.
yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of my mom. And then my other question for you is, how do you pitch this movie? Like, if somebody hasn't seen this yet, which they should, obviously, but
Hmm.
how do you pitch this movie to someone that's new to this film?
All right. So I sometimes can do different voices, but I'm like, think about this. If Spider-Man met other versions, what would it be like? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, coming soon to a theater near you.
That was pretty
That's
good.
I do what I can. I do what I can.
I
But
like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
hmm
I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's like more versions of Spider-Man. Sometimes there's this fear, like of, I think for some people that went into this movie, they're like, oh no, now I'm going to have to keep up with all these different Spider-Men. But they do
hmm
such a good job of like telling all those stories and
hmm
all of them like blending together. It's just so fun to watch.
yes,
And yeah, so I agree with that. And I'd also say, it's like I said earlier, artistically, just it's beautiful. It's got a great soundtrack and a great
hmm
cast. It's just a great film. So, and hopefully it broadens your perspective on what film is too. Because I have so many friends that are like, I don't really watch anything animated. That's for kids,
hmm
and it's like, but animation is cool because it's just so limitless. There's only so much we can
exactly
do
right.
in the real world. So it's films like this are fun because it really expands the horizons of what you're able to portray. So I'd
Hmm
say this is a really good movie. I really liked it. We'll pretty much watch anything from that studio, but I like that you
hmm
mentioned there's going to be another one of these, and looking forward to that as well.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on you can find me on Instagram and Twitter under the name DJ Luffy, like Luffy from One Piece. So DJ Luffy Sticks, but it's DJLuffyStix. So there's a fun story behind that, but I'm going to continue on with that. No worries. You can also find me on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel where I talk about things going on currently with our, in the world, and you can just basically type in my name. You should be able to find me on there. Also, I have a Facebook page. It's just, you can just, I think you type in Mr. Bryant Collins, but put it all as one word, and you should be able to find me on there. Don't have TikTok because I just don't want to do TikTok. So,
No pressure.
but yes, exactly right. But yeah, you can be able to find me on those.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming
Mhm.
on and hope to have you back soon and talk about some more films.
Yes, hopefully. You know what? Next movie, we should probably talk about the Mitchells versus the Machines. I'm
Okay,
down
I'm
for
gonna
that.
save
If you,
that one for you then, because I
yes.
really I just saw that. I absolutely loved it. So we'll
So
definitely have you back to talk
save
about
that
that.
one, and also save Blade for me. Okay, because we're
Oh,
gonna
yes. Okay,
yes,
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
write both of these down. You
yes.
Whenever people tell me, I try to write them down so that I don't forget.
I got you.
Okay. So I'm making a quick note here. Bryant Mitchell's.
Make sure to check it twice too. Just make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's only been a couple times where I've had to give a movie away, but it's only when, like, everybody asks for the same film, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna give it to the newbie," you know? But otherwise, I let people claim them, so you can do that. Alright, well,
Nice.
Brian, thank you so much for coming on, and hope to have you back soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I loved it and enjoy spending time with you.